Welcome to Indiana University Cinema's virtual screening room. My name is John Vickers, founding director of IU Cinema, and thank you for being here with us tonight for this conversation with actor and IU alumnus, Jonathan Banks. We're looking forward to this conversation with our very good friend, presented by IU Cinema and Indiana Memorial Union Board. We hope that you're staying healthy and well. For those of you who are IU Cinema patrons, we miss seeing you in person in our lobby and look forward to that once again that we can do that. IU Cinema vows to come back stronger and more inspired than ever. In the meantime, be hopeful and well. The pandemic is having an impact on every one of us, our families, our communities, our businesses, and our cultural institutions. And we're hopeful that these interactive film experiences during this challenging and isolating time gives you an opportunity to stay connected with the film community that you helped build. So thank you for joining us. After Jonathan's introduction by Lauren Long, we'll have a 45-minute conversation, which will cover a lot of ground. And then we're going to open it up to questions from you, our virtual audience. There should be a place in your Zoom meeting at the bottom of the page that's labeled Q&A, and you can begin asking questions at any time, and these will be collected during the conversation, and then we'll get to as many of these as we have time for. Lauren E. Long is a rising senior studying sex and cognition in her second term, and it is her second term as a director with Union Board. Having cultivated a deep love for cinema since childhood, she's thrilled to direct the Films Committee along Sahil Patel. Their mission as a team of directors this season of change is to comfort, engage, and challenge Indiana University students through films and media programming. So please welcome Lauren E. Long.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for your very kind introduction, John. I'm really delighted this evening to be introducing Jonathan Banks. Though perhaps best known for his iconic portrayal of Mike Ehrmantraut in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, Jonathan Banks boasts a body of works in motion picture television spanning 40 years. With the 2010 decade serving as the pinnacle of Banks' career, he has continued to earn highest accolades from his peers and critics since 2011, as well as a reputation as one of the hardest working character actors in the entire industry. In turn, his multiple Emmy and Screen Actors Guild Award nominations have validated him as one of the foremost supporting actors in television. Charlie Collier, head of AMC Television, stated, "Simply put, Jonathan is as good as they come in our business, and so far beyond. Just as he adds soul and depth to everything in which he acts, he does the same off-screen as well. Though his characters are often rough around the edges, and often even rough to the core, Jonathan is sincere, honest, generous, and one of the most warm human beings you will ever meet." Jonathan Banks attended Indiana University as an undergraduate in the late 1960s, acting on what is now the IU Cinema stage. Banks has kept Indiana University dear in his heart and in his family, having 2 children who are now IU alumni. He has visited several times to participate in speaking events at IU Cinema, work informally with students, serve as a bicentennial visiting professor, and to support IU in many other ways. In 2016, an honorary degree of Doctorate of Human Letters was bestowed upon Jonathan Banks by Indiana University. Tonight, I am thinking especially of those who use their lives to inspire, to educate, and to create, guiding us through a novel season of life with the light that only they can offer. Jonathan Banks, you stand among these luminaries, and John Vickers and I are so humbled to be hosting you this evening. Thank you for joining us.
Start my video. Hold on. I got it, Lauren.
Get in here.
I'm coming. Lauren, thank you so much. What a nice introduction that is. Do I see myself now or no, huh?
I think
you should, I think.
Am I just up in the corner?
Maybe, but we see you.
Okay, good.
Thank
you, John.
Important. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for being back with us. You were back in September for a week, and that was a really great week of working with students. So thanks for being back so soon.
Well, my pleasure. I love coming back.
Good. We're going to cover a number of themes, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. And the themes are going to be everything from path to influences and mentors, to your craft, which is acting, of course, to life lessons, and then legacy and impact. And so let's start with Lauren, if you want to start with the first question.
Absolutely. So first, I'd love to ask you, how long have media arts been a part of your life?
How long have media arts been a part of my life? Oh my God. Since I could walk across the room and turn the channel, literally, back when there were 3 stations and rabbit ears on top of the the television, and those indeed were media arts. Back when William Paley really thought that television would be a form of education, that it would elevate the public. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you have an early movie experience, whether it was on TV or in the cinemas, Jonathan?
Well, I mean, as far as the cinema went, you know, the cartoon Peter Pan, the Newton Theater in Washington, D.C., which was later burned down in the riots when Martin Luther King was shot. But they would, you know, back when there were no regulations, they just packed the theater with kids. So all of us were in the aisles too. The big ones threw us into the aisle, and that's where we sat. But I was so taken away with Peter Pan that I thought, man, I don't want to leave this theater. That's where I want to be. And I was old enough to know it was a tune, but at the same time, I just thought the flight of fantasy, and it was dear to my heart. Yeah.
Of course. Have you made a point to show that one to your kids as well?
Beg your pardon?
Have you made a point to show that movie to your kids as well?
Especially my youngest daughter, because she's into the world of tunes. She works at Nickelodeon as a producer, and you know, she's pretty big on Peter Pan. But she likes. There's a movie version that came out not long ago that the kid was great. The kid was great. And I can't remember, if she was here, she'd say she could name it, but it was one of the last ones. And how do you not like Nana? I mean, come on, you know?
What do you have an early experience or memory of being on stage, or where was the first time that you happened to be on the stage as an actor?
Probably, you know, around Christmas in grade school where, you know, I was a goat or a shepherd or something like that. Yeah. And it's fine with me. You know, all the costumes were way too hot and in a really closed, smelly auditorium. So, yep.
The
That was
familiar
it.
role as a goat is a good one.
Yeah.
When did you notice that you had a love for acting? And then,
Wait, Lauren, I can be a good goat, baby. Let me tell you that right
you
now.
know what? I think I believe you. I think I believe you. So in the same vein, when did you notice that you had a love for acting? And then when did you notice that you had real talent for it?
I don't know that if real talent for it. Let me go in reverse. I'm getting old enough that I thought the other day, and it's not false humility. I thought for any of us who have been lucky enough to make a living, that no matter how good we are, no matter the connection we make, and I definitely, the gospel I adhere to on stage, especially, it's you and the audience together at a really fine point. You're all in it together. You may be saying the lines, you may have the emotions, but you share them. But I've thought, as far as talent goes, I honestly believe, and this may go, and I'm not saying I'm right, it may go into all walks of life. There was always somebody that could have been better and didn't have the opportunity. Wherever they are in the world, I think you better keep the humility to know that there may be somebody out there that could have done your job better than you can. And to be grateful for how lucky you are. At least in my case, I feel that. What was the first part of that question?
When did you discover your love for acting? Did it happen to start with the goat?
As soon as, no, not the goat. It happened long before that. I never remember seeing anything from the very beginning, and especially in film. Well, film. I immediately wanted to do it. I thought that's where I want to be. I want to be there. Johnny has heard me say before Jimmy Durante, who was a broad comedian. And, and they, at his funeral in Beverly Hills, Marlon Brando was one of the pallbearers, but Jimmy always used to wear a hat, and they had it on top of the coffin. And if you see some of his movies now, you're going, what is Jonathan thinking? That's one of us dinging here. And because the humor is so broad, but he had a television show, and I was very small, and it was, black and white. The screen was this big. And at the end, after all this broad humor and slapstick and pies in the face or whatever it may be, he would walk out through 3 spotlights at the very end, and he would tip his hat, and he'd walk into another spotlight as he was going away from you. And the last spotlight, he'd tip his hat and he'd say, "Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are." Nobody knew what that meant. But even as a kid, I thought, oh, what? I wouldn't have known how to put it into words, don't know that I still do. But it was all that broad humor. And then there was that heartfelt emotion. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm in for that. Let me in. And the same with Jackie Gleason in The Honeymooners, where he was always big, he was always wrong, he was always contrite, he was always. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to say this real quick too, because I just like to share it. They only did a handful. They did 32 episodes of The Honeymooners, I think. And it might have been with Pert Kilton and not Meadows that he did this. But there's one episode, and this is supposed to be a comedy. They adopt a child, goes to the hospital. Norton's there, Trixie's there, and they bring the baby out. And the doctor says, "And here's your little girl." And immediately Jackie's going, wait a minute. What are you talking about? No. I was a boy. I was supposed to have a boy. Wife is in tears. The priest is there. That's all this. They all walk out of the room. And he is left with the baby in the bassinet that you never see. But he's talking to the baby. And he's saying, it's nothing against you, explaining it to him, but da-da-da-da. And of course, he falls in love. So they go home. Now they have their little girl. There's a knock on the door, and it's the priest. And he says, the mother has changed her mind. And immediately he goes into his thing. And Alice stands there with her arms crossed, and she says, "But Ralph, what if it was ours?" And they give the baby back. And I'm thinking, I got the same emotion I had when I was a kid. And again, I thought, I want to do that. I want to be able to have those highs and those lows. And and how lucky I've been that somebody bothered to watch every once in a while. So there's the answer to your question.
Can you talk about, that's a beautiful story, Jonathan. Can you talk about what drew you to Indiana University and then how that helped shape your acting career?
You want me to be honest, Johnny?
Sure.
All right. Well, a lot of my friends, it was, 1966, and I was, at the time, my mother worked very hard, but I didn't grow up in a garden district and in DC. And my friends, my close friends, we were all going to go join the service. That was kind of what you did. You could still get a job with the government printing office and not have a high school education back then, or the elect company, the gas company, whatever. Anyway, I was going to go join the service. And my mother, in one of her finest hours, fortunately for me, begged me. She said, just go try it, just go see, because I was a legacy at Indiana University. And which is where she went, and had to drop out, but then eventually went back and got her degree. And And I did. And I got there, and John, I thought I was in a resort. The girls were beautiful. There were creeks, there were chapels, there were ivy-covered walls. And my first class in theater was an acting class that I loved it. I loved it. Oh my God. I know a lot of people are going to kick me right in the butt for not being able to remember his name. I will before we finish. It was just, again, I know I don't mean to be totally maudlin about it, but how lucky could I have been? My friends went. Actually, was in contact with one of them this morning. But they went, and they were, Johnny and Freddie and Pat were all combat Marines in 1967 in Vietnam, when you didn't want to be a combat Marine. Now, whether I agreed with that war in the end, because as soon as you got to university, things began to change. But I'm going to curse here, excuse me, people, but as far as I'm concerned, to this day, no matter about what my opinion of that war is, excuse me, my friends carried my shit, and that's the way I look at it. Again, you know, I mean, I've drawn aces my whole life, and the best aces I might have drawn were being able to go to Indiana University. I owe Indiana University a lot.
Sorry, Lauren. Have you been able to reconcile that with yourself and your friends?
Oh yeah.
Good.
They're still my friends.
Yeah, good.
And I hold them in high esteem. I could go on about them for a long, long time. They like what I do. I'll tell you, everybody, they went on a trip to Greece. Everybody's retired now except me. And they say, and these old dudes traveling around Greece, and you know, they sent me a text, essentially, or an email, whatever it was. So, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're gonna die in some van in Albuquerque? You should be with us. Yeah. Next question, Lauren. Come on, quit dragging it here.
I'm so sorry. It's a really beautiful thing, though, that you're able to keep them so close to you. I really admire that and appreciate that, especially in these times. But you mentioned a little bit earlier that as soon as you saw performances on screen, you just knew that it was what you wanted to do. Was that something that ever wavered in your undergraduate career?
No. 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 I mean, I thought it was, you know, I think the self-confidence, you know, like I say, I was ready to go join the service. My mother had always told me that there's something better out there. There's something better. And Washington, D.C. is a great place, because if you have an adult that will expose you to all that is there, there's something free almost every night of the year in Washington, D.C. And you can go to an art exhibit. The Smithsonian is yours. You and I cannot shoot inside the Lincoln Memorial film. We can be out front because it is open to you and I all the time. Now, since 9/11, you know, I don't know. I hope all they're all open all night, because to walk in and read Lincoln's second inaugural about uniting the country is a soul-lifting experience, to say the least. But anyway, yeah, I mean, so I was exposed, and a lot of my friends are exposed to it too. You don't take it for granted. It's Washington at its best is an amazing place. And I'll tell you what, I mean, for not you, but well, maybe you, but for somebody that's a little older, it's a romantic weekend to go in there, make sure you get a hotel downtown, fly into National, which they call Reagan, and it's 10 minutes across the bridge, stay in a hotel, and you can walk everywhere without renting a car. And yeah, it's great. Yep. I hope that answers something that you just said. I don't know. I wander sometimes,
Got a
Lauren.
good story out of it.
I wander.
So Jonathan, we'll make the shift now to the acting and the craft. And I guess before we go there, how long has it been since you've been on stage? So you started on stage, and now you're doing episodic television films.
When I used to try, John, I used to try to do 2 plays a year, no matter where, no matter what. Whether, here was down at the Mark Taper, or whether I was doing a 90-seat equity waiver house somewhere, if they would have me. But I tried to do 2 plays a year until my youngest children were born. And then we kind of moved out of town a little bit. And then I really wanted to be home, and I wanted to be part of their lives. And that's misleading in that there were times where I had to leave town for 6, 7, 8 weeks at a time. And I remember coming back when they were still in high chairs, and there was a photo of me up in the corner somewhere. And Jenny, my wife, would, when she fed them, would go, "Daddy," and she'd point to the photo, and yeah. And I walked in after 6 or 7 weeks and came into the kitchen, and Jenny went, "Daddy." And they both looked, but they pointed to the photo that was up in the corner. So, I knew it was time to spend a little more time at home. It's only recently that I have thought about doing a play. Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Could you give us an idea of what you might be interested there in plays?
Well, I'll tell you things that I lack a lot of imagination, Lauren. So I go back sometimes and I'll reread books that, and which I'm quite happy to do, but I don't. One of my daughters is listening, and she gave me the most beautiful, my oldest daughter, my baby daughter, my love child from Indiana University, gave me the most wonderful bound cover of Ivanhoe, which I have. Now, here's the deal. Any movie you've ever seen of Ivanhoe, or the way they describe it, can I do this? I'll do this 2 minutes, and then because I would love to produce this version. The bad guy, which I always forget his name, but he's a Knight Templar, a French Knight Templar, and he is a miserable human being. He walks around with 2 Saracens, and they cut people up and they do bad things. Ivanhoe is a putz who walks around with, I can't remember, Rowena, I think is the girl's name, and they're very, very milquetoast, white, you might even say, and the Jewess, who the priest are trying to kill because she's a doctor. She does medicine. She saves Ivanhoe's life. So, and she's smitten with him. So you go on. The priests are they're going to burn, is it Rachel or Rebecca at the stake, the Jewish girl, because she's taken their business away. Now, Ivanhoe can ride in the list to save her life if he wins. All right. So with the big poles, whatever that's called. The Knight Templar, the miserable bad guy, has fallen in love with the Jewish girl. It's the first time you've seen anything decent about him. And the priests choose him to ride in the list. And Ivanhoe feels like he has to do it because she saved his life. And the Count, or the Knight Templar, says, you can ask anything of me, but don't add, all that I am is a fighter. All that I am, all that I know, you cannot ask me to lose. And he begs her, come away with me. And she threatens to throw herself out the window. She's having nothing to do with it. The bad guy rides in the list and gives his life for her. That story, nobody, any Hollywood version, it doesn't even come close. And what a great story. Oh, anyway, it's a great story to me. Sorry I took all that time.
Yeah,
But
no,
I would love to do that. Oh, God. I mean, I'm too old to play the bad guy anymore, or that bad guy. I could play one of the miserable priests is what I could do. But I would like to see that version. And it's interesting. It's not like Sir Walter Scott, because he very rarely in the book uses the word Jew without writing dog next to it. But there's a similarity as in Twain's Huckleberry Finn, which is absolutely an indictment of slavery and racism, but he uses the N-word 162 times in it. I'm not sure that that Scott was as blatant or what, as concerned as Twain was. But the hero is Rachel or Rebecca, if I'm saying it, I can't remember, But anyway, Joey, I know you're out there. Thank you for my book, baby.
So Jonathan, after working for 5 decades as an actor, or close to 5 decades, maybe it's more, have you ever, even at this point in your career, do you ever walk away from a scene thinking, I just learned something today that I might use again?
Yes. John, I don't, there are some actors that'll ask for take after take, and more power to them. If that's what they're doing, that's what they're doing. I don't like to do that unless I absolutely know how I can hit it, or unless it was horrendous. If it was really bad, but I'm very seldom totally pleased with anything I've ever done. I see the warts, but I like to come as prepared as I know how to be. And I like to put it down. And unless I really know that I really am aware to make it better, then I'm pretty much moving on. I mean, I laugh sometimes, with my directors, and I say to them, listen, if the camera didn't fall over, let's print it and move on. Come on. And I'm not always right when I do that, but I like to work quickly. And as far as decades, about how long I've been doing this goes, I got my first paycheck in Brown County, Indiana in 1967.
There are so many ways to tell a story and to bring truth to a character. What parts of you do you bring to the roles that you portray?
Oh my. There's, well, it's just that, I can look back on my youth and see what egotistical statement I may or may not have been, or how arrogant I was. And I'm not so stupid as not to know that I can still be very egotistical and in a way that I don't like. But I will now answer the question. I do think if you've lived a long time, you're carrying a lot of stuff. You're carrying a lot of stuff, for lack of a better term, in your soul, your heart. You've seen some bad things over the course of a lifetime. You've hurt people. You've been hurt. It serves you well when you do some characters. Now, if I'm doing a farce, obviously, I don't know how well it'll serve, but yeah, living will serve you well. I tell you, John's heard this before, but Lauren, I mean, one of the best direction maybe that I ever got in my life was from a graduate student when I was doing Born Yesterday at playing, a guy who was 50 whatever years old, and she said, only thing she said to, or maybe it was Summer and Smoke, I don't know. Anyway, whatever she said, it was less, do less. And I like that. I like it especially with a camera, because a camera will rest, and all you have to do is be there.
Mm.
You better be listening. You better be paying attention to what the other actor is saying or what the circumstance may be. But the camera will pretty much register everything.
That's great. Jonathan, you talked about what you bring sometimes to a role, and you're digging in your own personal history. Do you ever go back and watch your performances? And if so, has there ever been a moment where you've triggered the past memory that inspired those characters or those actions?
Oh yeah. I can do most recent things, but there is a lot of Mike Ehrmantraut that I see, whether in my friends that I told you about. They had to go somewhere. They had to see things, maybe do things that were never required of me. And in my heart, in my mind, I incorporate them into Mike Ehrmantraut, along with whatever Johnny Banks has seen.
If I can follow up on that, Lauren, if you don't mind. Mike is such a complex character, and he, Better Call Saul is bringing out a lot more of Mike, which is really wonderful and amazing. And he has to balance his struggle between tenderness and revenge. And there's a lot there. It's a deeply complex character. You've talked before about a love of Anthony Quinn, and Anthony Quinn has a lot of those parallels. Who, if anyone, do you draw inspiration from, and maybe past actors, but you've mentioned yourself and your friends. Are there others or actors that might have influenced the character as well?
Actor after actor after actor after actor. Have I consciously stolen from? Yeah, pretty much. On and on and on. And stolen from in the sense that I watched what they did and how much they moved me. Man, I wish I could. The teacher's name was Mr. Wally. Yes, the acting teacher. Anyway, done with that. There was an actor that I saw when I was in high school at Arena Stage in Washington, D.C., that went on, and he did a few shows on Broadway, did The Great White Hope. Marat Sade, I saw him do. He died, I think, before he was 40 years old. And he went to Catholic University, and it was Richard, and I can't remember his last name. But yeah, I really remember thinking, I want to be that good. I want to be that good. My God, I saw Keith Andes at Indiana University do a bus and truck of Man of La Mancha. The Aldonza character, she's the one who gets raped by the mule skinners, right? Somebody, I think so. That rape scene in Showalter in that auditorium was, and I was down pretty close. but the absolute throwing of that body up and down, and what they did, and how good she was when she tells Don Quixote that she's not that beautiful woman that he thinks and all that. It was so good. Now, my point is, it's a bus and truck that's stopping 2 nights here and 2 nights there. And Keith Andes was wonderful. And that woman that played Aldonza was wonderful. And it doesn't matter. All of a sudden, you're inspired by people. You can go somewhere in Bloomington probably tonight and be moved by an actor's performance. Well, I guess you guys are all locked down too, but when it opens up again. I mean, I very seldom am not moved when I see something in a film or on stage. I have a real problem with really kind of crude, and I talk like a sailor, but a foul mouth sailor. Just gross jokes to get a rise. I don't like it much. I don't know where it's going. I mean, I just, what I see, I saw, you're stuck at home. They had Jackass 3 or whatever was coming up on the television, and they had the clips. And I thought, really? Really? Or what is that humor where somebody gets hurt and you're supposed to laugh at it? I want to go hit the producers in the mouth. Here, you thought that was funny? Here, see if you think this is funny. Boom. They could film that. I'd laugh.
Lauren?
I have just a question about some older stories that you've mentioned. I've seen them as indictments at times and ways to hold ourselves accountable to the news stories that we tell. They often have elements that represent harm to a certain community and elements of a world that we no longer live in. What do you see being their role as we move forward in this kind of industry?
Well, let's be more personal even, Lauren. What do I see as my role? Every time I put a round or a bullet into somebody, what is my role? And I've obviously had to just skirt that forever. Well, it's a story. I'm really anxious to do Ivanhoe. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about a guy that really cuts people to pieces. Violence is a part of us, always has been. I don't think there is the rarest of human beings that would not kill in a certain situation. And I mean, that's great enlightenment, but it's true. If you are pushed, if something in your life that is dear to you, whether it's your mom, your dad, your baby, whatever it may be, you're going to fight for that life. But that is gratuitous violence. I mean, you get hit in the head, really. If you get punched, a lot of times your jaw is broken, cheekbone cracked, eye dislocated, nose on the other side of your face. I haven't dealt with it myself as maybe I should have, or I don't want to. And I'm probably going to go right out of this world without ever doing it. But I'll give you an example of something that's stuck in my mind forever. I did Beverly Hills Cop, right? And I shoot his friend in the hall, Mikey. Jimmy Russo's still a friend of mine to this day. And it was an ad lib. Later on, I went, well, after I slap him in the head, and I didn't think much about it. It was a drive-by shooting while that movie was still out in release in Los Angeles, where the guy yelled out the window as he shot and killed a young woman. who was sitting on a stoop with others. And he went, well, cuz.
Hmm.
I always thought maybe there should be what a bullet wound really does, that there should be a colostomy bag of somebody who has had to have their buttocks sewn shut because of all the damage, what bullet wounds really do, and just keep a 24-hour reel going about what it really is.
Following up on this, how do we take care of our audiences when they're seeing this kind of media? And how do we create more conscious viewers when these things are happening?
How do we create more conscious viewers? I don't know. I mean, we can have conversations like this. That's one way. But most people, they want to escape. There are probably a lot of people that were onto this now that have gone, I don't want to hear this guy talk anymore. I want to go, here, let's go put on Hobbes versus Shaw or whatever it was. That's what they want to escape. I can only speak for myself. Whether I know it's right or I know it's wrong, some of the best revenge movies. If I watch what's A Man on Fire, it's revenge for a little girl, and I like that movie. Do I bear responsibility? The only thing I can tell you is yes, I do. But I don't know of literature. I don't know from time eternal. Just stories are violent stories. But those wonderful stories, and I'm going to tell you a wonderful story. And I'm not trying to get out of this, but I had a bird fly into my glass not long ago. Little bird. It's dark, rainy day in LA, go figure. But boom, he hit that thing and left a mark. And he was out there out beyond the window, and he wasn't moving, wasn't moving, wasn't moving. And my wife went to get a box and try to take care of him and put him in the box. And all of a sudden, I mean, literally like 15 minutes later, whoosh, he flew all the way away. That doesn't answer your question, Lauren. I know it doesn't. I don't know what to do about that. I don't know if I want to do anything about storytelling. What you don't want to do, I guess we've come a long way since, in my lifetime, since we're making fun of people. Or in order to have the job that Hattie McDaniel had to be big and overblown, and wonderfully so. And all the different characters. And at least in the cinema, it seems to me now, and on television, that you can be any color, you can be any sexual preference, and you can be a hero. So that's good, but they're still committing violence. They're still being just as violent as ever. Does that answer the question a little bit?
A little bit. And one comment that I will make here is that I appreciate you challenging yourself and being as honest as you can in answering the question. It's big, it's loaded, and there are so many different pieces that we may never have answers to. With all of these different audiences, elements of media, we may never know where to begin. And I appreciate the way that you're bringing your experience to the table.
Okay, well, let's well, then we leave it, because part of it, my experience is just utter confusion. That historically, whatever our stories have told us, they have always involved violence and fear, as well as love and yes. Now we're going to have to evolve somewhere, and into what? Into another form of of human being, maybe, before that's not going to be there. Now, one of the reasons my youngest daughter's into tunes, because in her world, tunes are a gentle world. And that's what she's looking for. And if you can bring that, you can only make things better. I think. I have a lot of trouble with myself not reacting to, I got to remind myself many times about how I'm going to react. I mean, part of it, for a lot of boys, the way you grow up like this, you know, and whether you walk into a room, you're old enough now to see guys that walk into class and it's not just that they're arrogant or whatever. There's a defensive posture. And I recognize it in men more than I do in women, but there are a lot of us that walk in on the defense a lot. Anyway, next question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I left you with that, Lauren. I didn't answer it, and I did the best I could.
I appreciate you giving us what you have and for being honest with us. I really do.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
Jonathan, over these, now we've determined 5 and almost a half decades, you've had to memorize lines for hundreds of characters. Are there things that stick with you, that monologues or lines that still resonate with you, that you come back in your mind at times? And if so, if there's something that you still value, would you want to do something for us? And I'm not trying to get you to entertain us, but
how about if I just slap you in the head, John?
You can do that.
No, I'll tell you what resonates with me. What I remember are usually other people's lines, and I love brevity. I love the King's Speech where he says, "I have a voice," and Jeffrey Brush says, "Yes, you do," or "Indeed, you do." It's "Yes, you do," or "Indeed, you do." Obviously, I didn't remember it very well. Anthony Quinn, with his Academy Award in Viva Zapata, who wasn't there that long, but he wanted. I wanted. He took another man's wife, and I wanted. It's usually somebody else's lines.
Okay.
I tell you, I mean, guess I'm going back real quick. A few years ago, when Mike Ehrmantraut said she had wrist like a little bird, and that always stuck with me. And for those of you who don't know, he had answered an abuse call over and over and over again, and he had let the guy off. And eventually the woman was murdered. And it was called the no half measures speech, because that's the lesson that he learned. No more half measures. Lauren, I play a lot of bad guys. What can I tell you? I play a lot of guys that either get killed or kill.
Lauren?
I was just going to say I appreciate your consciousness in that, because it seems like you've grown a lot in acknowledging who you are in the role and what those roles are communicating to much broader audiences. And I have loved Mike Ehrmantraut for years. I feel like I've learned a lot from the character. Breaking Bad was one of my favorite shows and has been for a long time. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who has mentored you as you've grown older in acting?
I say it again.
Is there anyone who has mentored you at this stage in your life in acting?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, they're everywhere. But I mean, off the top of my head right now, Peter Gould, Vince Gilligan, all the writers, I feel like when they write to my character, yeah. Anytime I've had, and maybe I'm misusing the term mentor, but anytime somebody gives me a chance to act, I feel like they're my mentor. They've given me a lot. Here.
Do you see yourself serving as a mentor in any capacity?
Well, I mean, I would love to come back and teach, but I don't know if I really have the endurance to go a whole year or a whole semester. And what I really don't have the patience for is, I mean, I'd have a professional acting class, If somebody comes in and they tell me Uncle Joe, died 3 times in the last 4 months, then, get out of my class. Just no hard feeling, but get out of here. Don't be here. And the thing about, I'll tell you what blows me away is that anybody, if you're acting and then you have to go take a science class and you have these other obligations, that's not easy. That's not easy. I would say this: everybody in my class gets an A, but what I've taught, whether it's UCLA professional studies or whatever I've done, I lose about a third of the class immediately because I want you to get the scene partner. I want you to get your monologue. I want to see you work, because the only thing I know how an actor gets better is to act and act and act and act. Yep.
Okay. Jonathan, we'll go through maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll start picking questions from the audience. The late film critic Roger Ebert called movies empathy machines, and in this moment, we need empathy maybe more than ever. What do you think the power of this art form is to bring people together, to comfort people? I mean, what?
Wow.
And maybe this is getting to your escapism and your balance of how you deal with the characters sometimes you play. But what's the power of film as an art form, or episodic television or television?
It's monumental is my first word that comes to my mind, because rightly or wrongly, so many of us take our cues from a heroine or a hero that we think, I want to be that person. Look at me. I wanted to be Jim Urani. I wanted to be Jackie Gleason. You talk about influence, and they have. And in some of the things that I've done, or Eve Arden as Miss Brooks, I loved her sarcasm. But boy, I mean, I'm just, let's address it for what's going on right now. Because there are a lot of people out there that are maybe not in Bloomington, but in New York, who are locked down, who need a kind word, who need a kind story, who need to know that there are thoroughly decent people out there. And they're witnessing them, saving their lives. 2 of my friends who are New York cops, who sent me photos of themselves in full hazmat gear. And that's what they're going out and answering calls. And they were big fans of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. There's such decent people out there. And Lauren, I think that addresses, at least I'm still working, baby, on your, ma'am, miss, excuse me. I'm still working on your question that I so believe in most people. I believe most people until I believe all people until they prove me wrong, until they lie. And I've tried to raise my kids that way, that you take a human being for their word, but that's the impact that we have. We can make great films, great stories. Don't lie in those stories. That's it, John. You mustn't lie in those stories. You mustn't produce cheap shit. There's no other way around it. And I think for the most people now, I've been very lucky in the past few years. So people are very nice to me. But that doesn't mean for any of you actors that are out there listening that I haven't gone and been treated poorly. And there's stuff, trust me, that I am so not proud that I did. I didn't go in to do the job that way, but I knew it was trash. I don't think it's a time for trash right now. It's a time to to put out what is the very, very best of our ability. One of my daughters went into an interview where she was describing what she wanted to do as a producer and as a writer. And this was and the young producers over at a company that is now dissolving said to her, really, we're looking for male-driven macho stuff, the blah, 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 blah. I said to her, at least they were honest with you. But they sure as hell weren't interested in any kind of quality. They could have cared less what quality you wanted to bring.
You spoke a little bit about that question. Do you have ideas about what you're interested in leaving behind?
You broke up on me.
Sorry about that. You mentioned a little bit of impact within that question. Do you have any ideas of the legacy that you want to leave? What kind of things you want to leave?
Lauren, it may be a little too late for that because there's a body of work out there. If you turn in to Barnaby Jones or a kid's show on Saturday morning of Big John, Little John in the 1970s, when I was being a clown, for lack of a better thing to say, I'm one of those actors that took the work. I'm one of those actors that even into his late 40s was wondering, am I going to have to sell my house? Am I going to have to do this? Am I going to have to do that? That's my whole career is on the hustle. And more power to people more power to the Daniel Day-Lewises in this world who've been able to choose what they're going to do. At least I think he has. I don't like to live another person's life for them. But there are others examples of that. But I think I remember there was early on in, in Better Call Saul. There were a couple guys that came on the show and they'd never seen the show. And on the call sheet, I was the parking lot attendant. And I remember walking over to them at lunch and going to sit down with them. and they both kind of blew me off. Yeah. Here we're having a conversation here. And I thought, well, okay. And I went and ate my lunch. The next day, this asshole, this sycophant, excuse my language, he goes, you're not the parking lot attendant. I said, yeah, I am the parking lot attendant. He said, but you play the character of, and I would, yeah, I do that too, but I'm the parking lot attendant. Whether it was a situation that was recent, but over the years, people that condescend to you or treat you like trash, you got to remember, it ain't you. It's them. However trite that sounds, it's them. It's not you. Just deal with people with respect. I got to tell you, especially when I first started to work, there were older actors from the silence, especially women who had still lived or were still alive, that if you took the trouble and you didn't have the access to iPhones and stuff, if you took the trouble to find out what their credits were, it would have humbled you. These people, and they were just trying to make a living, till the end of days. Years ago, too, you used to see, I don't do it, but in the New York Times, the obituary section, when an older actress would die, how many of them had been single throughout their life, because it's a hard life to share with somebody. I want to get in, I'm going to say that about younger actors, and I say it always too. If you're with a partner that you love, that loves you, but if that partner is constantly telling you, why don't you get a real job? You got to make a decision right now. You got to walk away from that stuff. Either that or I don't know how you come to terms with it. It's hard enough to go out there and be an actor without somebody riding your back all the time when you're doing everything you know how. Yep.
So we're going to jump into, thank you, Jonathan. We're going to jump into some questions from the audience, and this one you might have fun with. I don't know who it's from, but you have worked with Buddy Ebsen, Andy Griffith, and Red Fox during just a few of your TV roles. What was it like working with these all-time greats, and do you have any interesting stories?
Can I curse now? Is it okay if I curse a little?
You mean again?
Yeah, yes or no, guys? Really, seriously, because all right.
Within reason.
So we'll start in reverse. So Red Fox, they fired the guy that I'm doing a guest star on Something Arms, right? They fired the guy 2 days before they shoot on Friday night. I go in, I rehearse it. He's monosyllabic. I go in at lunch. They won't have a read through at lunch. He is yelling at the producer writer. You know, you miserable this. He's pissed off. He lays a line of cocaine out on the table, snorts the whole line, brushes it off the table, and continues to ridicule the writer-producer. I thought, please, say something to me, because all I got to do is get up and walk out, and I'll get paid, you know? Anyway, we did it. I remember seeing him in Las Vegas, and the guy he was with went, "Hey, Red, there's Jonathan Banks. Say hello to Jonathan Banks." And you know what? I didn't want to say hello to Red Fox. I went, yeah. Buddy Ebsen was about as far right as, well, Attila the Hun had probably more, I know. But Buddy Ebsen was a great talent, great dancer, and did some good work. His politics were pretty far right. I'm okay. And Andy Griffith was just a good guy.
Great.
A good guy.
A participant named Ian, and they ask, in what ways has the entertainment industry improved or declined since you began your career?
Oh, wow. You know, there was a lot to be said when I began my career, especially in Hollywood, that it was more rambunctious. Gee, we're having a great time, you know? And literally, if the camera didn't fall over on some of those television shows, they were printing, they were moving on. I had a crew cheer me one night on what was that? It might have been an Andy Griffith spinoff of something, that because it was a big thing where I get knocked around in a room and bookcases go over and all that kind of stuff. And I did it in one take, and they got to go home early on Friday night. And so, you know, that's not exactly a great way to approach the art. So I mean, listen, I'll tell you how it's improved. Television, the content of television for the most part now is better than most of what you see in film. The writing is so much better. So there you go. There's an answer.
Okay. Several people have asked this question. How much interaction and influence do you have with the writers on a TV show like Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul? Are there aspects of Mike's story or dialogue which you've been able to contribute to or influence?
Yeah. First of all, you know, we've been together so long, and these people are my friends. And that's not, but no, they're flat out my friends, who really, my writers and my producers did some wonderful things when our house burned in the Malibu fires. They were right there. And Bryan Cranston gave me his house for over a month. So that said, the writers, you better know their words. And I, from Indiana University, was taught you don't change a writer's words. You know, if somebody gives you the go ahead to improv, then that is the case. As far as influence, and the biggest example that happened, I'll give you this. So in Breaking Bad, there's a scene where I take Mylar balloons and go to a warehouse and shoot people. But I give my little granddaughter 3 Mylar balloons, and I tell her, and in the distance there was a background artist, and that was supposed to be the mother. And I said, "All right, go to your mother." And you see the kid run up into the background. It was a cold day in Albuquerque, and I said to Vince, Vince, who was directing it, Gilligan, I said, "That is my granddaughter, but that's not my daughter. Wherever Mike lost his soul, it has to do with his son." And Vince gave it his classic rubbing of the chin. Wow. and that was done. I don't know. 3 years later, when they asked me to do Better Call Saul, Peter Gould said, "Do you remember when you talked about?" And that then resulted in the wonderful monologue in season 1, where Mike describes his responsibility for the death of his son. So I guess I had a little influence there. But listen, when I disagree with him, I'll disagree with him. But in the end, if they say it's so, it's so. And that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah. Can I, before we go to the next question, Lauren, just follow up? And I know that you've dabbled in screenwriting, and dabbled's not the right word because you're serious about it. Has that helped you bring more to characters by also writing the characters?
I'm a lazy writer, John. I mean, film is a visual medium, and I don't have and I should, but I don't have the respect for it that the writers do. That doesn't mean I can't tell a good story, but my stories usually have to do, it's visual. And I want to leave a camera on a face. I want to let a camera rest. I want to see what the reaction to something is. I don't mean to, I'm not underestimating myself. I could be more disciplined in my writing than I am. But I don't want to drive myself crazy. That's one of those things I want to have a good time with. I have a good time in my acting. I take it, maybe I should lighten up on my acting, for God's sake.
No.
I like that you seem to have a good sense of when in your roles and in your work, enough is enough, when you're satisfied. I think that's great. And we also have a lot of folks who are asking, can you talk about some of the differences between your approach to portraying the same character in Better Call Saul versus in Breaking Bad, if there are any?
Short answer, no. But you know, the thing is that he's younger, and what has happened to him, and it drives me crazy. One of the things that the writers and I disagreed with was, and it's the only time I remember saying I won't say that line. It's when the German, and his name's Rainer Bach, who's a wonderful actor. We were in the bar, and he talks about his father building the Sydney Opera House, and he says, "What about your dad, Mike?" And I think the line was, "My father didn't amount to much." And I thought, I said, I'm not going to say that, because he goes on to say something about a cold water flat. You know, rent wasn't always there. But I thought, Mike, as much of a code as Mike has, he's not going to say that. about, he's not going to say he wasn't worth much, especially about his father, even though he wasn't worth much. That's about the only thing I can ever remember absolutely not saying. I did get into it about an object preposition with Tommy Schnauz one time, but that's another story.
Rich from Cincinnati asks, comments and then asks, it never ceases to amaze me how people cannot distinguish between fictional characters and the actors who play them. Have you ever had any such confusion by people who act wary of you, or worse, thinking that you're in real life a dangerous or bad guy?
Well, Jenny and I, my wife Jenny and I were up in a mountain town, maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago. I can't remember, but we were up in a place called Idlewild, which is a beautiful place, and it's up about 8,000 feet, and it's near here. And I went into a bakery to get us a couple things, and Jenny was out on the porch of this place, and the woman came up to her and said, "Is he hurting you? Is he hurting you?" And she went, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, and she said, "No, he's not hurting me." And every once in a while, yeah, it'll happen. Somebody just won't differentiate. What I dread is the guy that goes, when he's drunk, that goes, "You don't look like such a tough guy to me." and I go, "Yeah, no, I'm not." Yeah, right.
We have another attendee asking, do you have any tips for actors to hone their craft while quarantined?
Memorize a monologue. Now, let's get into that. I mean, are you talking to him right now? Or
it's being typed.
okay, ask him what he's interested in doing. Or her, she.
We can throw that in the Q&A chat.
Okay, let's give a minute. We'll go to
yeah, go on.
So Peyton asks, when you left school, you were a stage manager for hair.
Yep.
Were you more interested in acting or behind the scenes work at the time? Or was the stage management work just a means to being near the theater regardless of your role?
Well, the stage management's job was so I could get my equity card, and did. But then one thing led to another, and I ended up restaging the national tour of hair. And I worked as a director for 3 or 4 years. And then I really had a disastrous production of Grease in Australia. And, I thought, and my fragile ego was just crushed. But at the same time, I wanted to be on stage. That was all there was to it. And so that was probably 1973, maybe. And that was the last thing I ever directed.
We're waiting on another, oh, never mind, we have another question here. Okay, so the anonymous user has not added anything to their question about honing craft.
Okay. All right, the anonymous user. All right.
So Jonathan, you were talking a little bit about the ability to say no to your writers or questioning lines. You do much improvisation in your roles?
I've worked with Vince Vaughn on a thing, I can't remember the name, insurance policy, something. But I mean, Vince is a big, he wants to ad lib. And no, I didn't. I went, "Vince, I don't do that." I mean, I did do it, but I mean, it's not working. At least I thought that at the moment. Now, I'll tell you a really great ad lib was Nick Nolte in 48 Hours. Nick had been riding around with the San Francisco Police Department for 2 weeks taking notes, and he came to me because essentially all I was supposed to do with that was show up, go upstairs, get shot, and die. And I pulled up, and Walter Hill's the director, who was wonderful. And I think my character's name was Algren, and he said, and when I pulled up, Nick said to me, he said, "I think we have a history." But I saw this notebook, and I thought, "Oh my God, it's going to be one of those actors that every 5 seconds is going back to their notes." never saw that Notebook again. And all for the bad raps that Nick Nolte gets about. Nick Nolte is a consummate professional who shows up and knows his stuff, no matter what's happened the night before. But, you know, he said, I think we have a history. So we kind of played around. He said, how's the wife? I said, mean as a snake. But right into where we go into the lobby, and, you know, that's an ad lib. It's improv with the girl, the woman, and we check in. And then coming down the stairs after I've been shot, I said to Walter, I said, what if I'm so out of it that I'm dry firing as I come down the steps? And we're like, oh, let's try that. And right down to, you know, don't you do it, Jack. Don't you give him that gun. God damn it, don't you do it. That is a lot of, I mean, the shootout was in there. That was with Jimmy Remar and Sonny. What was Sonny's last name? Landon. Anyway, and Jimmy Keene playing my partner, who's a wonderful actor. That's a lot of improv. And that's a lot of improv that really worked. When you're not just doing it to be doing it. Yeah. I mean, it's like, what's it like? I mean, that's something that bothers me. When guys are trying to be too cute. You know, one of those Three Musketeers with Oliver Platt and Charlie Sheen and Kiefer Sutherland, they all thought they were cuter than the material. And I thought, did you guys ever read the book? You know? Yeah, because now watch me get it wrong, but I think Porthos is the one who kills the bad girl. I forget names, but he was in love with her. No, nothing funny about that. Anyway.
We have another anti-attendee, Manish, asking, what do you generally look for when you're given a script? And what qualities do the best scripts have that catch your eye?
Well, the best scripts are just a wonderful read. You go right through it and you go, boy, that was a good story. Yeah. The first thing I look for, honestly, me. What am I doing? But no, I mean, in all seriousness, to read a great scripts, sometimes it reads really well. I have a question.
I have an answer.
Oh, you sure? Don't be so confident. What have you seen recently that you really, really, really liked? Doesn't have to be a correct answer.
Let me think on this one for a minute.
All right, you think about it.
Actually, I do have an answer for you already. I grew up really, really loving Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. It's obviously not a new movie, if that's what you're looking for.
No, but that's what I mean. Do you know the answer? Because I was looking for nothing. I was looking for that answer. I tell my daughter, the youngest one, especially the one I've remembered to tell over and over and over again, if you like something, don't you ever, ever, ever apologize for it. And The Temple of Doom is a wonderful film. It's a fun film. Oh my God.
Absolutely. In modern context, there are many, many critiques to be made, but I have so much fun watching it. I'll never forget all the times I wasn't allowed to watch that scene where his heart is just beating. It's really, really entertaining for me and brings back great memories of family.
Yeah, great.
Absolutely.
So, Jonathan, the next question is, what was it like working on Breaking Bad as it became more popular? And did the production change as it rose in popularity?
No, it never changed. And by production, I mean, this 10-year ride has been about as lucky as you get. There's not a bad egg in a bunch. It's fun to go to work. And again, without sounding like a bliss ninny, how lucky I am that for 10 years, I don't dread going to work. I get to go to work. I get to go to work. People are nice. They're great. I mean, Breaking Bad, when I showed up, I will tell you this, I looked around because I'd also come out of the 1970s. I'd come out of the 1970s when you saw, you know, people who demanded that their what do you call them, their mobile home was so big, or would be upset if theirs was a foot shorter than the other star on the show, and crap like that. And when I got to Breaking Bad, there were a bunch of what they call double bangers. So 2 people to a trailer, nice, but not what you usually see on the set of a big show. That never changed. And part of that was Cranston, who knew how healthy that was, an environment. And it has never changed on Better Call Saul. And if I have anything to say with it, I mean, it'll never change for me if I ever had any input into a show that I was doing. Are people making different salaries? Yes, they're making different salaries. But damn it, don't come to that set and think you're better than anybody else. Don't. There's nothing more galling. Ugh, yeah. Next.
We have another question asking, which Shakespearean role would you most like to play? And which character would you most like the opportunity to play in general?
I did Malvolio at one time that I did really poorly. I'd like to go back and have another crack at it. And there's a fop. I mean, yeah, that would be fun. Yeah.
So David asks, you have an upcoming film called The Damaged. What is it about, and what kind of character do you play?
Well, that's something, an upcoming film. That's something that Conrad Goody and I wrote together. And Connie's one of my closest, dearest friends, and we had a good time. But it's about 2 old hitmen and one considerably older than the other that are going to pick up a woman who has run away from a mob boss more than once, and they get more than they bargained for. She is foul-mouthed to the point that the old guy, me, puts her in the trunk of the car to transport her back to Vegas. But on the way to Vegas, something happens with a young woman who has just given birth that their whole direction has to change. But essentially, it's fun. Hopefully there's a lot of soul in it, and hopefully there's a lot of soul in it.
Can I ask a follow-up quickly? Is this the first screenplay that you've written or co-wrote that is getting produced?
No, I wrote loosely, and I'm fictionalized of Frederick Douglass, because when Frederick Douglass, escaped, in his books, he'll go back and tell you he wouldn't name people that helped him escape because he was feared for their lives, that they would be hurt because they'd helped him escape. So I wrote something about Frederick Douglass, or based on Frederick Douglass, up to the time that he escaped in Maryland. I would give you one that, when he was in probably other people know this, but he'd been loaned out to a cousin in Baltimore, and they sent him to the shipyards, and they would send boys from the Catholic orphanage there to work in the docks as well. And he would steal bread so that the Catholic kids, who were then about to be put into, it's not servitude. What happens when they send them out into the country, anyway, to work on a farm? Anyway, he stole bread and gave them to the Catholic boys so they would teach him how to read. Anyway, I wrote that. It's good.
Yeah, nice.
It's good. Dare I say that? Oh, that's good, John. Yeah, thank you.
Do you see yourself ever retiring from acting? If when you did retire, what role would you see yourself doing? Sorry, I stumbled over that one a little bit.
No, I can really be at home. I can really be at home, or at least I thought I could, because we're really locked down in Los Angeles. I have had to hide all the sharp instruments from my wife. She is scary at when we at best, and now when we're in this situation, how about if I say something really inappropriate? She is a bloodthirsty Spaniard, you know. You gotta be careful of her. Now,
You, you
that's
should watch
her
out.
up behind me there somewhere. There she is. Yeah, that's my baby. Um, what would I don't know. My house burned down, and I was underinsured, so I may have to work until I fall into the ground. If I'm lucky enough to be able to work. We get the house back up, and then I'll see. Um, yeah, journeyman character actor.
And a darn good one at that.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think this will be the last question, or maybe one more after this. Your scenes with Abigail Zoe Lewis, who plays your granddaughter on Better Call Saul, have been so moving. Do you prepare differently when working with a very young actor?
No, and because I believe the language of acting crosses all ages. If you say to an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old, you ever been angry? Yes. You ever wanted to hit somebody? Yes. You ever been in love? Oh, no. And then you say to them, have you ever had a pet? And immediately they melt. They, the language is an honest language that is very simple about hurt and pain, happiness. And in kids, and that's what I really, I think young children, I wish acting classes incorporated young children, not so that they took over. I mean, it would still be that, but that I try never to talk down to a kid. I'm talking to them on the same level. Um, if they want to go, if they want to go out and play and be kids, but these acting classes that teach them to sell Coca-Cola or go, aren't I cute? What a disservice, in my opinion. I don't like that. I don't like it. I the My granddaughter right now, the first thing, she is so honest, and she instinctively listens. She listens. There's there I wonder sometimes that some actors aren't savants. I don't consider myself to be very bright, but I am interested, and I do want to learn. But I just wonder sometimes if there isn't a savant quality about actors, that this is what we do and this is what we see. And there's some people, I think in order to perceive something in someone else, that you must have compassion first. You you must almost instinctively see them at their very best. I don't know if I don't know. And now you got me talking so much, I'll say anything. But I do wonder if that's not true.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I firmly believe that. But for our final question, everybody wants to know, what's your favorite IU or Bloomington memory?
Wow. Hi, Joey, my daughter. Are you still listening? That's my little girl. No, there are a lot of nice memories. But I have my living memory in my daughter, and I have, because of my daughter, I now have my granddaughter. And because of my granddaughter, I now have my great grandson, Noah. So there's not a time I didn't walk through that campus that it didn't heal me. They had me they had me teach a class one time or address a class of the honors students that before the graduation. There were about 50 in the room. And I'd walked across campus and the flowers were all out, but I watched the gardeners and they were kind of anonymous there, you know. And I went by a beautiful tree that you could smell. And I said to him, I said, why don't we write thank you notes? It's all right, thank you notes to these gardeners. I said, what does it mean to you when you walk through this campus? You would be surprised at the truly heartfelt pouring of emotion that went out to these gardeners. Excuse me. And the last time I was there, I had lunch with the staff of gardeners. The guys came in and the women came in out of the campus. Then we had lunch. I like that. I like that. I felt very at home. I felt very at home both places, actually, because it's all one. That is all one.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
I believe in thank you notes. You know, you're talking about being at home. Whether it's your Aunt Louise or whoever it is that you don't, maybe gives you a hard time even. In fact, maybe that's a better person to write a thank you note to. Some ass that is a relative that try to have a good memory. I mean, that's being too much of a Pollyanna, but write a thank you note to somebody or just write a note to somebody. It gets you out of your head. The one thing I am sure of, and has been said 1,000 times, is that if you do something for somebody else, it'll take you out of yourself. And that is true. Including this for me. I feel like I've gushed and gushed and gushed, and I'll get off and I'll remember people's names and and I should have done this better. I should have done that better.
You were perfect, Jonathan, and you were always so generous with us all here. We can't wait till you're back here in Bloomington with us all in person as well, and we know that time is coming again. I'd like to also offer thanks to all of IU Cinema's staff for putting this together. You know, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, so thanks to all of them, and thanks to all the folks that have tuned in to listen to you and Lauren and I. Lauren, thanks. So yeah, thanks for being with us, and really, it's been said many times, but you are a good friend and a good friend to IU, so thanks for being here for us.
Well, John, thank you. Thank you for having me, and to all the staff and Lauren and all those people that that listened. I appreciate it. Now tell the guy if he's gonna be at home, advice to do things in your home, memorize a monologue and don't sit around, memorize it and do it. You know what? Is he a student, that guy?
Not sure. If he memorizes one and puts it on video and
Yes.
sends it to us, we'll send it to you. Okay.
And I'll comment on it.
Sounds good. Thank you again.
All right, kids. How do I turn this off, Johnny?
Well, I think Seth will take care of us.
Thank you, Seth.
Good night.
Good night.